A week before the wedding, my fiancée, Savannah Vance, threw herself a bachelorette party. During the festivities, Liam Miller, a scholarship kid her family sponsored, publicly confessed his love for her. Savannah, moved to tears, kissed him so intensely you could practically see the strings of saliva between them. Her best friend teased her. "Aren't you afraid Caleb Sterling will find out and call off the wedding?" "Who cares?" Savannah shot back. "It's a merger, not a romance. If he can't handle this, they can find another groom." Liam, puffed up with pride, added, "What Savannah and I have is real love. Caleb Sterling is just a name on a marriage certificate." He smirked. "Besides, they haven't even signed the license yet. Right now, he's nobody." I let out a cold laugh, closed the door to their private room, and sent the video to my father. My text was simple. "This is just a business deal. The Vances asset is tainted. Find me a new bride. The wedding proceeds as planned." I followed up with another text. "Since Savannah Vance loves a guy with no money, let's make sure she stays poor for the rest of her life." The muffled sounds of their party, filled with jeers at my expense, faded behind the heavy door. I walked back to the room I'd booked with my childhood friend, Ryan Thorne. My face was grim as I messaged my executive assistant. "Notify the project management team. Suspend all upcoming joint ventures with Vance Industries, effective immediately. First thing tomorrow. Contact our banks and cancel all corporate credit lines and transfers to Vance Industries. And leak it to the press. Sterling Enterprises will no longer be conducting any business with the Vance family. Period. Without our capital infusion, Vance Industries would be bankrupt in 3 months." But their bankruptcy wasn't enough. I wanted to make sure that when the Vances scrambled for loans to cover the gap, they'd be forced to sign personal liability guarantees. When the company inevitably collapsed, everything they owned would be seized. Savannah wanted a love story with a broke kid? Fine. I'll make sure they were equals. My father quickly replied with a file containing profiles of eligible heiresses in our circle. The invitations were already out. Canceling the wedding now wouldn't just be an embarrassment to the Sterling family. It would damage our reputation. A last-minute bride swap was better than a public fiasco. "You're really going to marry Savannah Vance? Getting cheated on doesn't look good on you, man," Ryan said, sliding his phone across the table. A silent video played on the screen. There were Savannah and Liam Miller, silhouetted against a backdrop of city lights, kissing passionately in front of a floor-to-ceiling window. On Liam's wrist was a luxury watch I'd gotten rid of ages ago. It was a minor piece to me, but its resale value was enough to land him in prison for a few years. "Where did you get this?" I asked, taking the phone and scrolling through. It was Liam's own social media account. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. I was just worrying the video I'd taken wasn't damning enough. I'd had private investigators tailing Savannah since we set the wedding date, but they'd never found concrete proof for me to break the engagement. With what Liam himself had posted, I had more than enough ammunition to publicly humiliate the entire Vance clan. "The kid's a small-time influencer," Ryan explained. "Built a following of a couple 100,000 with his relationship diaries on TikTok." He broke into a loud laugh. "Dude, this is epic. The wedding is in a week, and your fiancé is dragging the Sterling family name through the mud for clicks." I winced, then silently screen-recorded and screenshotted everything. The engagement between the Sterlings and the Vances had been forced on us. The Vances had leveraged an old favor, a debt of gratitude my grandfather felt he owed them. He'd never thought much of their family, and after they showed up with Savannah to demand we make good on some old, half-forgotten promise, he dragged his feet on setting a wedding date for years. 6 months ago, a series of disastrous decisions left Vance Industries on the brink of collapse. After being turned down by every bank and investor in town, they came crawling back, pressuring us to finally hold the wedding in exchange for a bailout. My impression of Savannah Vance could be summed up in 3 words: shallow, arrogant, and stupid. And she was right. It was just a business deal. So why should I tolerate a fool as my wife? After saving all the evidence of her affair with Liam, I handed the phone back to Ryan. "The wedding date stands," I said coolly, "but the bride won't be Savannah Vance." Ryan blinked. "You already have someone else in mind?" "Not yet. You'll see who it is on the day of the wedding." I glanced at my watch. "I'm heading to Sterling Capital tomorrow morning. You should think about how we can leverage this to acquire all of the Vance family's assets." "Now that's a job I'll enjoy," Ryan said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I was in a hurry to get home and review my options for a new bride, but of course I ran right into Savannah on my way out. She was holding Liam's hand as they emerged from their private room. When she saw me, she flinched for a second but didn't let go of his hand. In fact, she pulled him closer and walked right toward me, her expression dripping with arrogance. "Caleb, are you serious?" she snapped. Stop following me around like some stalker just because you're my fiancé. I don't like you. This is a business arrangement. Don't make it weird. Ryan's jaw dropped. He had clearly never encountered this level of idiocy before. I felt a surge of anger. I reached out, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look at me. Then let's call it off. And make sure your grandfather gets on his knees to do it, I said, my voice low and cold. This engagement was his idea. He begged for it. This wedding was something your family begged for. I let go of her chin, and Ryan, ever the drama queen, handed me a sanitized wipe. I meticulously cleaned my fingers as if I'd touched something filthy. Savannah, who had probably never been treated with such contempt in her life, had tears welling in her eyes. Liam, finally reacting, pulled her behind him and threw a punch at me. I dodged it easily and kicked him square in the chest, sending him flying. I shot a cold glare to stun Savannah before striding over and planting my foot on Liam's back. He let out a pained grunt, then gritted his teeth. Caleb Sterling, this is assault. I'm going to sue you. Sue me? I pressed down harder, my voice laced with scorn. I'll be out in an hour after a cup of coffee with the right people. You, on the other hand, if I really wanted to, I could have you locked up right now. I leaned in. And what do you think would happen to that fancy scholarship of yours if I made one phone call? Liam clamped his mouth shut, his face a mask of fury. Savannah, finally snapping out of her shock, glared at me with red-rimmed eyes. Caleb, what is wrong with you? I had too much to drink, and he was just helping me. For the sake of our family's long relationship, you don't have to pay for his medical bills. Just apologize to him. I laughed a harsh, humorless sound and ground my heel into his back. You want me to apologize? What's wrong with that? You're the one who hurt him, she screamed, suddenly lunging at me like a madwoman. I pulled my foot back just in time. Thrown off balance, she tripped over Liam and landed hard on top of him. I stepped back to Ryan's side, pulled out my phone, and calmly dialed 911. They wanted to involve the authorities? Fine, I'd do it for them. Savannah scrambled to help Liam up, her voice thick with concern. Liam, are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine, he said, grabbing her wrist, his voice dripping with foam martyrdom. Mister, Sterling was right to hit me. I was out of line. Ryan's eyes widened, his mouth agape. Playing the victim isn't just for girls, I see, he muttered. I ignored him, waiting patiently for the police to arrive. A few minutes later, 2 officers came upstairs. I pointed at the watch on Liam's wrist. My watch was stolen, I stated calmly, and he's wearing it. Liam's face went white. He looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Savannah was just as stunned, staring at me in disbelief. I took that watch. I just gave it to Liam to mess around with. Caleb, what are you trying to do? And who are you to me to be giving my things away as gifts? I retorted. A fiancée has no legal rights to her partner's property. We are married. I was done with her stupidity. I turned to the officers. The stolen item is of significant value. Please proceed as the law dictates. The stolen watch incident ended with Savannah paying for the damages and offering a formal apology. The booze had worn off, and she finally realized the trouble she was in. She immediately called her grandfather to confess, and the old man started frantically calling my grandfather and my father. My grandfather's phone was on Do Not Disturb, as it always was after 9 p.m. My father simply ignored the calls. After receiving the videos I'd sent, my parents had quickly mobilized their network, compiling a list of potential brides who were ready to marry on short notice. My dad handed me his tablet. I know it's a business arrangement, Caleb, but you should at least find someone you can stand to look at, he said. I took the tablet. I'm going to the Vances tomorrow to officially end it, I said casually. Frankly, we're lucky Savannah is stupid enough to give us a clean way out before the wedding. My grandfather wouldn't have to get involved. The original debt was a trivial matter. The Vance patriarch's first wife had simply helped my grandmother, who had gone into labor, get to a hospital. In return, the Vance family received sterling support for decades and leveraged it into a forced marriage alliance. The benefits they'd already reaped had more than repaid that small kindness. Good, my father said, looking relieved. I'll tell your grandfather in the morning. We had to honor our debts, but we couldn't let the Sterling name be dragged through the mud. I scrolled through the profiles of the heiresses and stopped on one page. Eliza Monroe. I was surprised. Why is Eliza Monroe looking for a marriage alliance? Eliza had already taken over her family's entire business empire. She had no need for a strategic marriage. After graduating from college, she didn't join Monroe Global. She started her own tech company, which was now valued at more than her family's entire legacy corporation. There was a saying in our circle, don't be afraid of rich kids who party. Be afraid of the ones who want to prove themselves. Eliza hadn't just proven herself. She had systematically outmaneuvered her 2 brothers and 3 cousins to become the sole heir. The The Monroe family wanted to sideline the other heirs, but they were worried the ones who were pushed out would cause trouble. A powerful alliance was the solution, my father explained, sipping his tea. And for what I hear, it was Eliza's idea. I looked down at her picture, my finger tracing the outline of her face. A smile crept onto my lips. She's the one, I said. I'll contact her myself tomorrow. As fellow heirs, we both understood that this was about mutual benefit. Feelings could be cultivated after the wedding, and if they couldn't, it didn't matter. You couldn't have it all in a marriage alliance. The next morning, I told my grandfather about my decision to break the engagement. He mulled it over for a moment, then simply packed a bag and had his assistant drive him to the airport for an impromptu vacation. I had my driver prepare the car and went to the Vance estate alone. Savannah's face was a mask of hatred. She looked like she wanted to tear me limb from limb. Her parents, Arthur and his wife, looked me up and down with condescending smirks, as if I were some unruly child. I didn't recognize the other relatives gathered there. Old man Vance, the patriarch, immediately adopted a scolding tone. Caleb, I heard you and Savannah had a little disagreement last night. You're about to get married. You should just talk things through. Arthur Vance put on his father-in-law airs. Caleb, Savannah is a few years younger than you. She just liked to have fun. Nothing happened with Liam. He's a scholarship student we've sponsored for years. He's always seen Savannah as a big sister. With her father and grandfather backing her up, Savannah's arrogance returned in full force. You don't have to explain anything to him. We could just find another family to align with. It's not like he's my husband yet, telling me who I can and can't be friends with. I don't need him. As she ranted, the smile I was trying to suppress finally broke free. She was truly a world-class idiot. This wasn't a disagreement. Your precious granddaughter cheated on me, I stated flatly. I'm here today to end the engagement, not to listen to your excuses. Your family has 6 days to find the capital to save yourselves. My wedding date remains the same. I'm just changing the bride. I took out my phone and used AirPlay to cast the videos of Liam and Savannah's various romantic encounters onto the large smart TV in their living room. Old man Vance's face turned black. The color drained from Savannah's cheeks. Arthur and his wife looked mortified, while the other relatives watched Savannah with undisguised schadenfreude. I didn't care about their feelings. Every contract our family signed was contingent on this marriage. Miss Vance can continue to play all she wants, but I'm done playing along. The shock was too much for the old man. His face flushed, he clutched his chest, and collapsed. The living room erupted in chaos. I stood up and calmly took my leave. Once in the car, I called Eliza Monroe, and we agreed on a place to meet. Just as I hung up, Ryan called, his laughter dripping with malice. Dude, Savannah's boy toy just posted another update. If you don't break this engagement soon, you're going to be the biggest joke in New York. It's done, I said, leaning back against the leather seat and watching the manicured gardens of the Vance estate recede. Get the funds ready and let the Vances know we're pulling out. The Vance estate was a beautiful, classic property. You've always wanted an old-world garden estate, right? This might be your chance. And make a call to the bank. Tell them to call in Vance Industries Loans. Now, Ryan chuckled and hung up. Vance Industries didn't have the capital to withdraw from their new, over-leveraged projects. The longer this dragged on, the deeper they'd sink, until the entire company was pulled under. Sterling Enterprises had poured hundreds of millions of real dollars into this deal out of a sense of obligation, and all Savannah could do was act like I was lucky to have her. She had it coming. When I arrived at the cafe, Eliza was already there, sitting in a booth with a latte. Her custom laptop was open to a screen displaying a real-time analysis of Monroe Global stock performance. I glanced at it briefly before sitting down across from her. Am I late? I asked. Not at all. I was just scouting a new retail location nearby. Eliza raised an eyebrow, a playful smile on her lips. We met before, Caleb. No need to be so formal. You know my family situation. If you're good with this, I can have my lawyer meet us at your headquarters to hash out the agreement. No objections. Let's go now. Her straightforwardness took me by surprise. But then I remembered. This was not only the heir to the Monroe fortune, but a self-made billionaire. It was foolish to define her by her gender. Eliza was clear-headed and rational. The terms she proposed were almost identical to what I had envisioned. After 2 hours of negotiations, the final agreement was printed out. We each notified our families of the time and place for a formal meeting. Just then, my executive assistant knocked and entered, her face pale. Before I could say a word, Savannah Vance burst into the room, pointing a finger at me and screaming, Caleb Sterling, who do you think you are calling off the wedding just like that? I'm warning you. If you dare replace me at the altar, I'll make sure the whole world knows that the Sterling family can't be trusted. Eliza Monroe arched an eyebrow, crossed her arms, and leaned back, an amused expression on her face. She was clearly watching to see how I'd handle this. The message was clear. If you can't manage your ex, our deal is off. Security, I snapped, my brow furrowing in annoyance. Who let this person up here? I fixed my gaze on Savannah. If you walk out of here right now, I might, for your grandfather's sake, show you a shred of decency. Suddenly, Savannah pulled out her phone and aimed the camera at me, apparently starting a live stream. Everyone knows we're about to get married. How can you just call it off? What am I supposed to do? Instinctively, I grabbed her wrist, twisted her arm behind her back, and slammed her down onto the small conference table in the VIP lounge. She let out a pained shriek and started screaming again. Caleb Sterling, let me go. I'll report you for assault. I took her phone, making sure my face wasn't in the frame, and quickly ended the broadcast. Eliza's face broke into a genuinely interested smile, her eyes full of amusement. To be honest, I had never been so humiliated in my life. My personal bodyguard arrived before corporate security. Get her under control, I ordered. Savannah's eyes were wild with rage as she struggled. Caleb Sterling, you wouldn't dare treat me like this. You can forget about me ever marrying you. Don't worry, I wouldn't marry you if you were the last woman on earth. I have an allergy to stupidity, I retorted. I found her father's number in my contacts and called him, putting it on speaker. Mr. Vance, your daughter is causing a scene at Sterling Enterprises. I'm suffering from severe emotional distress and am considering buying a trending topic on Twitter to vent my frustration. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling, so sorry. I'll be right there to get her. Arthur Vance's voice was utterly servile. It had only been a few hours, but he'd clearly gotten the news about us pulling all our funding. Savannah looked like she'd been struck by lightning. For the first time, a flicker of genuine fear appeared in her eyes. I raised an eyebrow, a mocking smile on my lips. Your grandfather begged for this engagement. I told you I'd make your family beg to get out of it. Coming to your house in person was a courtesy. But you, with your inflated ego, seemed to think you were some goddess everyone would fall in love with. I returned to my seat next to Eliza and waved a hand, signaling the bodyguards to take Savannah to the adjacent reception room. The Vance family was in turmoil. If they wanted to shut me up, it was going to cost them. Once the room was quiet again, Eliza's lips curved into a playful smile. Mr. Sterling, your taste is interesting. The engagement was forced on us, I said, feeling my face flush. I wished a hole would open in the floor and swallow me. The original agreement was for my father's generation, but neither family had a daughter at the time. The Vances are definitely a piece of work, Eliza said, her tone shifting to one of approval. But it seems your judgment is sound. I hope we have a successful partnership. Let's notify our families. The dowry and bride price are things they need to discuss. What we decide on our own doesn't count. Eliza laughed, a bright, clear sound. Caleb Sterling, have you ever even had a girlfriend? My family is rather traditional. I mumbled, feeling my face burn again. And dating was never a priority. After arranging for our families to meet at an exclusive private restaurant, we waited for Arthur Vance to arrive. To show his sincerity, he brought a deed for a piece of land, one of the Vances' last prime assets. I accepted it without hesitation. After sending Savannah and her father on their way, I saw it was nearly dinner time. Eliza and I decided to head to the restaurant to wait for our families. Our parents were acquainted, though not close. Eliza's grandfather was a true character, wise, sharp, and not a trace of chauvinism. He had been Eliza's biggest champion when she took over the company, pushing back against the entire family. He read over our prenuptial agreement and added a single clause. Any future children, regardless of gender, would receive 5% of the shares from both family empires. Neither set of parents objected. They signed without a fuss. After dinner, as we were leaving, Eliza glanced at her watch. Do you have your ID on you? It's still early. We might as well go get the marriage license while we're out. After getting our marriage license, Eliza and I went back to Sterling headquarters to discuss the wedding details. A merger between our families was a major event. Eliza was not Savannah, and I was determined to give her the respect and grand ceremony she deserved. This is the new wedding plan. The venue is the Sterling family's estate in Westchester. See if you have any issues with it, I said, pushing the portfolio across the table. A custom gown is out of the question on this timeline, but I have a connection with the top designer. We can purchase his masterpiece directly, the Dream Queen. It's a one-of-a-kind, globally exclusive piece. I felt a strange sense of anticipation. The wedding with Savannah had been planned for a 6-star hotel, which was hardly a step down. But the family estate was different. We only used it for the most important family events. Eliza smiled and opened the portfolio. The location is perfect, and the design for the ceremony is very creative. She paused, and I love the dress. She pushed the book back to me, looking genuinely pleased. I'm sure it will be a memorable wedding. Of course, I replied, a smile breaking across my own face. And we'll be the best partners in business and in life. That evening after dinner, I dropped her off at her place. My father called. Old man Vance is in a coma. The entire Vance family showed up here demanding compensation. I had security throw them out. They'll probably come looking for you next. Got it. You and Mom get some sleep, I said, hanging up. I immediately called Ryan to check on his progress in securing all of the Vances real estate assets. They're waiting for the old man to make a decision. If he doesn't wake up, they'll have no choice but to accept my terms, Ryan said, his voice oozing with smug satisfaction. Everyone in our circle knows Savannah cheated on you. Don't you dare go soft on them out of respect for her grandfather. I agreed, and we finalized the details of the trap we were setting for the Vances. After hanging up, I scrolled through my social media feeds. Savannah's friends were truly terrible people, especially her so-called besties. They were gleefully sharing the story, and she was an absolute fool. When she saw the post with a video of her and Liam's passionate kiss, she actually liked it and commented, "The camera angle could have been better." I closed the app and sent a message to Eliza. "Honey, we need to move up the official announcement of our marriage." She replied almost instantly, "My PR team is on standby. I'll tell them to release the press statement now." I couldn't help but smile. I took a picture of our marriage certificate, both the cover and the inside page, and sent it to my assistant. "Tell our PR department to coordinate with Monroe Global. Release a joint announcement about the marriage alliance." Now, the news of the Sterling Monroe marriage, complete with a photo of a license, sent shockwaves through the business world. Overnight, Vance Industries lost more than half of its partners. The remaining few would surely cancel their contracts after seeing the news tomorrow. The invitations for the joint pre-wedding cocktail party hosted by the Sterling and Monroe families would also be sent out tomorrow. Old man Vance had invited half the city's business elite to the engagement party for me and Savannah. Now, the bride was an Eliza Monroe. Anyone with half a brain knew the Vance family was finished. And so was Savannah Vance. 3 days before the wedding, the gown I'd bought for Eliza was flown in. I immediately arranged for us to go for a fitting. Eliza was beautiful, a strong, poised beauty, not the delicate, fragile kind. In the wedding dress, she was so stunning I couldn't look away. The staff helping her with the train gasped in awe. "My dear," I breathed, my throat suddenly dry as I took her outstretched hand. "You're beautiful." Even though we were legally married, we hadn't moved in together yet. "Caleb, your face is beet red." Eliza laughed, a delighted sparkle in her eyes. "But I like it." I could hear my own heart thumping, completely out of rhythm. The dress needed minor alterations. While Eliza was in the changing room, Savannah burst into the VIP lounge, her eyes red, and started screaming at me. "Caleb Sterling, how could you get a marriage license with her? How could you just replace me? I just play a little game with someone, and you were so cruel you put my grandfather in the hospital and got me grounded for 3 days. My own cousins have been tormenting me because of you, because I don't like being cheated on, and because you're an idiot," I said, my patience wearing thin. I snapped at my bodyguards, "Get her out of here, and from now on, she is not to come within 3 feet of me." Eliza's female bodyguard swiftly stepped between us, blocking Savannah's path. My own guards quickly entered and dragged a screaming Savannah out of the room. Eliza emerged from the dressing room, a smile playing on her lips. "The Vances can't raise any capital. The banks are calling in their loans, and several of their major projects have collapsed. They'll be filing for bankruptcy within a month." She winked. "In a way, I should thank Savannah. Acquiring the Vances core assets will boost Monroe Global's profits by 50% this year. We should both thank her," I said, unable to stop myself from smiling. The Vances had made a catastrophic business decision, and out of respect for my grandfather, I had initially only instructed Ryan to monitor the situation, not to actively sabotage them. But when Savannah so brazenly disrespected my family, I saw no reason to hold back. If the Sterlings could build the Vances up, we could certainly tear them down. And from the sound of it, Eliza had definitely had a hand in the Vances disastrous decision 6 months ago. I liked her even more. 2 days before the wedding, the Sterling and Monroe families hosted a joint cocktail party. Eliza and I arrived in custom-made, matching formal wear, a public confirmation that we were officially married and our families were formally allied. Most of the guests at the party were also invited to our wedding. Ryan, ever the gossip hound, made his rounds before finding me alone. "I discovered something very interesting," he whispered. That night of Savannah's bachelorette party. Do you know why Liam decided to confess his love to her right then and there? I honestly had no idea. Ryan just smirked, holding up his champagne flute in a mock toast. I'll tell you after the wedding. Fine, let him keep his secrets. I wasn't a gossip addict like he was. We chatted for a few minutes before a commotion erupted outside the main ballroom. The voice sounded familiar. Ryan and I exchanged a look and walked over to investigate. Of course, it was Savannah. She didn't have an invitation and couldn't get in. She was screaming at the staff like a shrew. I'm Caleb Sterling's ex-fiancée. Why can't I go in? Savannah, I said, my voice low and firm. You are not invited by my wife or me. She completely lost it, pointing a finger at my nose. My grandfather might never wake up, and it's all your fault. Caleb Sterling, you're a murderer. Her voice was so loud that a crowd began to gather, including Eliza and several other guests, all watching from a safe distance. Seeing she had an audience, Savannah grew even more hysterical. If you hadn't come to our house to break the engagement, my grandfather never would have collapsed. And the only reason I even looked at Liam was because you drove me to it. We were engaged for 5 years, and you never once called me, never took me to a single event. You never showed me any respect. Don't you dare pretend to be the good guy, Caleb Sterling. I ground my back teeth together, an incredulous laugh escaping my lips. Arguing was pointless. Evidence was king. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and casually selected a call recording, playing it on speaker. My voice filled the air. The Johnson family's baby shower is tonight. I need you to come with me. Get ready, and I'll send a driver to pick you up. Then Savannah's voice, dripping with disdain. A baby shower? What's the point? It's just a bunch of social climbers. I'm Savannah Vance. I don't go to things like that. You can handle it yourself. Savannah stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. I stopped the recording, a cold smile on my face. Miss Vance, your grandfather forced this engagement on my family. I never liked you, but I never disrespected you. I have plenty more recordings just like this one. Would you like to hear them? Business is about integrity. That's the only reason I went along with the engagement my grandfather pushed on me, despite my dislike for her. In 5 years, I could say with a clear conscience that I had never wronged Savannah Vance. I wasn't some lovesick puppy. Her family had begged for this alliance. Who the hell did she think she was, expecting me to revolve my world around her? My father, with my mother on his arm, walked over. His voice was like steel. From this day forward, no Sterling-owned hotel or property will ever serve any member of the Vance family. My father's declaration was the final severing of ties between the Sterlings and the Vances. Any remaining partners of the Vances would now be scrambling for the exits. With 13 banks calling their loans, Sterling Enterprises ceasing all cooperation, and investors pulling out, the Vances bankruptcy would accelerate rapidly. On the wedding day, the Sterling estate was filled with guests. The heads of nearly every major company in New York's business world were there to witness my marriage to Eliza Monroe. The Vances were not invited. The ceremony went off without a hitch. Afterward, Eliza and I changed into new outfits to greet our guests. In a custom-tailored cheapao, Eliza possessed a different, captivating kind of beauty. After an afternoon of compliments about what a perfect couple we were, and more than a few glasses of champagne, we were both a little dizzy by the time we returned to our suite. But our spirits were high, and so were our bodies. A night like this was too precious to waste. The next morning, I woke up and looked at Eliza, still sleeping peacefully beside me. I felt a renewed surge of gratitude that she was the one I had married. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Ryan, that bastard, clearly unable to stand seeing me happy. He'd sent a video. In it, Eliza and Liam Miller were sitting in the corner of a coffee shop, deep in conversation. The video was shot from a distance, so I couldn't hear what they were saying. I slipped out of bed and went to my study, then called Ryan. You did this on purpose, didn't you? Not all, he said with a sly chuckle. I just wanted to let you know your wife had her eye on you for a long time. Why don't you just ask her? A little honesty between husband and wife. He laughed again. You might be surprised. I hung up and replayed the video, my eyes catching the digital clock projected on the coffee shop wall. The date was 8 months ago, the day after Old Man Vance had cornered my grandfather at his birthday party and demanded to know when the wedding for me and Savannah would be held. Remembering Ryan's hint, I couldn't help but smile. What are you looking at that's making you so happy? Eliza appeared at the doorway in her silk pajamas, her face still soft with sleep, exuding a lazy, captivating charm. I'm watching how my brilliant wife engineered a hostile takeover of my engagement, I said, a grin spreading across my face. And I'm feeling very lucky to have caught your eye. I stood up, wrapped an arm around her shoulders, and led her to the sofa. I played the video Ryan had sent. Want to see a clearer version? With audio, she asked, snuggling into my arms. She unlocked her own phone, found a video, and pressed play. In this version, the camera was close. Eliza was leaning back in her chair, the picture of calm confidence. The money Sienna gave you wouldn't even cover one of her new handbags, she said to Liam. Take my offer instead. When you graduate, you'll have the capital to establish yourself, whether you stay in New York or go somewhere else. Liam looked nervous and fidgety. What? What do you want me to do? He finally stammered. It's simple. Secretly start a relationship with Savannah Vance. Sienna already paid you to seduce her, anyway. As for the rest, just wait for my instructions, Eliza said. You and Savannah have been flirting for a while. She's just been hesitant because of her engagement. Eliza slid a black credit card across the table. The Vance family is about to go bankrupt. You can choose a future, or you can choose a girl with no future. It's up to you. Liam chose the future. I turned to meet Eliza's gaze, an amused smile on my face. So, when did you first set your sights on me? She had 5 other potential heirs she could have backed. Choosing me was the surest way to secure her position. It also meant that if we had children, she wouldn't have to worry about protecting them from internal family politics. For a sole heiress in a family with ambitious brothers and cousins, marrying out was a dangerous game. Monroe Global was worth around $40 billion, and her personal assets were over $50 billion and growing. The day I secured my position as the heir to the Monroe fortune, she said. And if we're being technical, the original marriage agreement between our families was based on my grandmother's good deed, not that awful old man's. My grandmother was his first wife, the one he kicked out of the house. She was starving on the street when she ran into my grandfather. Eliza's smile was frank. I decided to steal you away not just to get revenge for my grandmother, but because the Sterlings have a reputation for integrity. Even if you fell out of love, you'd handle it with a clean break. Rather than let my brothers use my marriage as a pawn in their games, I decided to choose for myself. A very good choice, I said, leaning in to hug her, a genuine laugh escaping my lips. You're damn right it was, she whispered back. Our 10-day honeymoon ended, and old man Vance still hadn't woken up. Vance Industries was in total chaos. Employees were polishing their resumes and jumping ship. The talented ones had already found new positions. Sterling Enterprises and Monroe Global hired quite a few of them. I had just finished a meeting about the acquisition of Vance Industries when the Vance family showed up, dragging Savannah with them to apologize. The security guards on the ground floor couldn't stop them, so my assistant had to put them in a reception room. Mr. Sterling, Savannah just made a foolish mistake. For the sake of our family's long friendship, could you please help the Vance family one last time? Arthur Vance's tone was pathetic. He was even more stooped than the last time he'd come to retrieve his daughter. Savannah stood with her head down, her cheeks red and swollen. Before I could speak, Arthur slapped Savannah across the face. Apologize to Mr. Sterling now, he barked. You were engaged, and you were still messing around with someone else. Is that what we taught you? I frowned, annoyed. Mr. Vance, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm a married man. Please stop bringing up this engagement. I love my wife, and when you upset her, it makes me want to make you even more upset. Seeing that the pity play wasn't working, Arthur started talking about the friendship between our grandfathers. Our families go way back. You don't even have to invest any more money. Just act as a guarantor so the banks will stop calling in our loans. If it weren't for your father shamelessly forcing us to honor that old promise, Vance Industries never would have grown so quickly. I interrupted, my patience gone. My entire family was sick of this so-called alliance and the Vances leech-like behavior. When equals merge, it's a marriage. When one is propping up the other, it's charity. If it hadn't been for that cursed engagement, my family never would have provided them with targeted financial aid like we were some government program. I let out a derisive laugh and called my assistant. Escort them out. And from now on, no one from the Vance family is to be allowed upstairs unless it's for official business. If they try to force their way in, call the police. As the Vances were herded out of the reception room, they all glared at Savannah as if she were their mortal enemy. And in a way, she was. Their life of luxury was over. To ruin someone's finances is like murdering their parents. The same cousins who had smirked with schadenfreude the day I broke the engagement had since sent me videos of them berating and abusing Savannah, all in a pathetic attempt to appease me. Mr. Sterling, you see we've dealt with Savannah. Can you please help our family one more time? I watched the video and immediately forwarded it to the police. With the Vances already in hot water, a visit from the cops was the last thing they needed. The stress was enough to make old man Vance, who had briefly regained consciousness, relapse into a coma. Arthur Vance, at his wit's end, went begging to Ryan. Ryan, who had his eye on the Vance family estate, told him he'd consider it if Arthur used the estate as collateral. Arthur signed without a second thought. "I think the Vances can start planning the old man's funeral," Ryan said, laughing on the phone. "He schemed his way into the upper class with your family's help, only to have a bunch of kids and grandkids who do nothing but sabotage him." I told him to keep up the good work. Moments after we hung up, the PI I had watching Liam sent me a new video. Liam and Savannah's best friend, Sienna, were secretly living together. He had taken $5 million from my wife, and instead of planning for his future, he was focused on being a kept man. It's hard to go from luxury to simplicity. To maintain his lavish lifestyle, Liam had sold off all the luxury goods Savannah had given him. I anonymously forwarded the video to Savannah, along with a piece of advice. Get a marriage license with Liam. You'll be able to move out of the Vance disaster. Then go to your best friend and demand compensation. Otherwise, you'll leak the evidence that she's a homewrecker. She might be a fool, but even she could see the reality of her situation. Her entire family wanted to kill her, and Liam was trying to dump her. She had no other choice. For once, Savannah's love-addled brain did something smart. She didn't get a marriage license with Liam. She reported him to the police for theft by deception. To avoid a criminal record, Liam returned every penny he had ever taken from her. Knowing Savannah now had a small fortune, I anonymously tipped off her cousins. Less than an hour later, the PI sent me a video of the Vance siblings and cousins physically fighting over the money. That's more like it. If you're going down, you all go down together. A week later, Vance Industries officially began bankruptcy proceedings. Ryan, holding the investment contract, joined the other creditors in petitioning the court to freeze all of the Vance family's real estate and bank accounts. Old man Vance woke up again, heard that even the family estate had been mortgaged, and immediately had a fatal stroke. This time, he didn't open his eyes again. After the funeral, Savannah's cousin hastily married some second-rate rich kid. Savannah's reputation was so toxic, with her ex-best friend spreading rumors about her affair everywhere, that not even the wannabe rich kids would touch her. The entire Vance clan was forced to move out of the estate. The brothers fought viciously, blaming each other for their downfall. The money Savannah had clawed back from Liam ended up in her parents' hands. But since they were both senior executives involved in the company's disastrous decisions, the moment the money hit their account, it was frozen. It was almost painful to watch such stupidity. The three of them were reduced to living on the spare change in Savannah's Venmo account, crammed into a shared apartment. Savannah couldn't handle it. She took the evidence of Liam's affair with Sienna and threatened him, demanding he get money from Sienna to support her and her parents. "Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant," Ryan said, marveling at the latest report from the PI. He clicked his tongue. How could a man as shrewd as Old Man Vance have descendants who are all dumber than a box of rocks? His second wife was a mistress who schemed her way in, I explained, pulling a bottle of water from the mini-fridge for Ryan as I booted up my computer to review the Vance asset list. His first wife, the one who suffered with him for over a decade, was kicked out the moment he got a taste of money from our family. That's why my grandfather never respected him or anyone in the Vance family. We had been poring over the Vance financials. They had tried to model their management style on Sterling Enterprises, but there was one crucial lesson they never learned. Keep business and personal accounts separate. Their family expenses were a tangled mess, sometimes paid from corporate funds, sometimes from private accounts. When the bankruptcy process started, every single one of their accounts was frozen. I'm starting to believe what my parents always said," Ryan sighed. "It's better to marry a normal person with good character and ambition than someone from a rich family full of illegitimate children and drama. It messes with the gene pool." I shot him a look and went back to work. Savannah, unaccustomed to hardship, didn't last long in the shared apartment. Soon, she was back at Sterling headquarters, trying to ambush me. As a married man, I naturally wanted to stay as far away as possible. To avoid any misunderstanding with my wife, I contacted Liam and used his academic record as leverage, telling him to get Savannah and keep her away from me. He didn't dare refuse. Life finally returned to normal. My relationship with my wife deepened and strengthened. Eliza was brilliant, with sky-high emotional intelligence. We were a perfect match. 6 months later, the Vance Industries debt was settled. The entire Vance family was now broke, forced to scramble for a living. Given the size of their company, the bankruptcy should have taken much longer. But with Monroe Capital as the largest creditor, our auditors, legal teams, and liquidation firms were all in place in record time. Savannah and Liam were still tangled up together. I suppose you could call it true love. I didn't pay much attention to news about her. The next time I saw her was months later when my wife and I were out of state, playing a round of golf with a business partner. Savannah was working as a caddy at the golf club. She looked numb, defeated. A group of local trust fund kids were gathered around her, making lewd, insulting comments. She saw us at the same time we saw her. The blood drained from her face. She probably never imagined she'd run into us, even after moving so far away. My wife, unable to watch, motioned for a bodyguard to intervene. I didn't stop her, but before a guard could reach them, Liam, also dressed in a caddy uniform, appeared. He stormed into the group of rich kids and slapped Savannah hard across the face. "You slut," he screamed. "I'll leave you alone for 5 minutes, and you can't help but throw yourself at someone." The rich kids were shocked by his violence and ganged up on him, beating him before scattering, giving our bodyguard no chance to get involved. I wrapped my arm around my wife's waist and turned away, pretending I hadn't seen a thing. A caddy's salary is around $50,000 a year. They were still too well off. But judging by Liam's attitude towards her, her life wasn't easy. They were never meant to live a life of wealth and privilege anyway, my wife murmured, leaning against me with a wry smile. "Well, my grandmother helped your grandfather get your grandma to the hospital. That old bastard beat her and accused her of trying to seduce any man she saw. Later, when he saw how wealthy your grandfather was, he forced my grandmother to go ask him for a reward. Your grandfather, not knowing the man's character, invited them both to dinner. That's when the old bastard got drunk and finagled the marriage promise." After she finished, I raised an eyebrow. "If he kicked your grandmother out, why didn't your grandfather ever go after him?" With the Monroe family's power, the man shouldn't have been able to enjoy decades of wealth. He ran off with his mistress. Back then, finding someone was like finding a needle in a haystack, Eliza shrugged. By the time he came back with his new family during the economic boom, he'd already latched onto your family and was quietly building his business. I only discovered that the old man from the stories was the same bastard who abused my grandmother when our families announced the engagement. That's when I started fighting for control of the company. I refused to be a pawn in anyone's game. She looked at me, her eyes shining, and I'm glad I fought. "You're right, my love," I said, smiling as I leaned down to kiss her. "I'm very glad you fought.